Hello, everyone. My name is Angela. I have an older sister, and her name is Bree. We used to be the best friends ever and shared virtually everything. In fact, it recently turned out that we even shared a boyfriend. Bree has always been the pretty sister among the two of us. She was pretty popular at school, and other girls wanted to dress like her and look like her, while boys were sending her tons of love notes and little gifts just to make her give them a smile. While I was totally average, both in terms of my grades and my appearance, it's not that I was ugly or something. It's just been so hard to grow beside such a beauty, knowing that there was nothing outstanding about me that other people would admire. Despite that, Bree and I were always the best friends ever. She never bragged to me or showed off, and she was always pretty supportive of me. Since, as I said, she was older, to be precise, 2 years older than me, she practically taught me everything that I know about makeup, boys, and relationships. Although it took a while for her advice to be put into action. You see, all the decent boys at school were busy trying to attract Bree's attention. And whenever any of them would come up to me, it ended up with them trying to get to know something about Bree's preferences. Anyway, one day a new family arrived on our street, and my mom, as usual, decided to go and greet the new neighbors. Bree refused to support our mom because she was busy getting ready for a date with another guy, while I still had nothing else to do. So I went across the street together with Mom. As fate would have it, that new nice family had a son named Dave. He was my age. He looked really handsome, and he was going to go to the same school that me and Bree were attending. Oh, and he was going to study in the same grade as me. After 5 minutes of greetings there, I couldn't get Dave out of my head. Of course, I told Bree about that, and she was so happy for me. She even told me that I was extremely lucky, because with the two of us studying in the same class and living on the same street, that would mean plenty of chances to start dating and so on. So, yes, I was totally excited about that, and for some strange reason, this time I was pretty sure that I would finally get myself a boyfriend. It turned out that I was right, and that Dave also liked me. When, the next day, at school, he decided to sit next to me in our biology class, and then he joined me in the cafeteria, and then he suggested that he should walk me home. Dave was awesome. He was smart enough to help me improve my own grades, and he was brought up well enough to charm my mom, and he enjoyed baseball, which eventually inspired my dad to call him son. You know, the whole family really liked Dave. But at some point, I began noticing that one of us actually started liking him maybe way too much. And I'm not talking about me. Whenever Dave came to my place and Bree was also there, she'd flirt with him shamelessly. No, I mean it. She complimented him, telling him that he looked really good in that shirt, or she'd call him Davy or Sweetie, and so on. And whenever they talked to each other, she'd come really close and put her hand on his chest, for example. It's not that I was totally against any physical contact between them, but you know what they say about touching somebody during a conversation, right? I tend to drive any unpleasant and jealous thoughts out of my head, telling myself that she was my sister and my best friend, and that she'd never do anything bad to my relationship. But her behavior became more and more defiant from time to time. For instance, once Dave and I were going to watch movies at my house, and my parents were out, and Bree was getting ready to meet with somebody. So, it was supposed to be a nice evening for just the two of us. But Bree began picking out the perfect outfit for herself and said that she needed a man's advice. And so she started trying on her figure-hugging dresses and tight skinny jeans with their super tight shirts. This made me really mad. I told her that we needed to have a serious talk and took her to another room so that Dave couldn't hear us. Can you imagine that she feigned utter surprise while I was asking her to stop flirting with my boyfriend? She looked as if she couldn't understand what I was talking about and why I was so mad at her. Honestly, I tried to be kind while I was telling her this, but Bree sort of blew up. She found the fact that I suggested that she laid eyes on Dave completely outrageous. She said that if I was that insecure, I shouldn't bring my boyfriend home, and I should probably go see a therapist. And then she simply left for whatever meeting she had. But my mood was totally ruined. Of course, Dave noticed that something was wrong between me and Bree, and I was really sad and in desperate need of consolation. So I shared my worries with him. This made Dave smile. It turned out, just like Bree, he didn't notice any flirting between them and even thought there might have been something from her side. It was not a big deal for him because the only girl he was interested in was me. Oh, this was so cute. It really calmed me down about jealousy, but now I knew I needed to apologize to Bree for insulting her. Well, I apologized and she kind of forgave me. But if you think that she began behaving differently with Dave, you are mistaken. Nothing changed, and maybe now it was even worse because she knew that her "Dave, sweetie" routine really bothered me. I mulled over the situation again and again and finally came to the conclusion that the only way to teach my sister a lesson would be to play hardball, following her rules. That time Bree was dating with one guy from the local coffee shop, Chuck. She was saying that these were her most promising relationships and that she thought that she really liked him a lot, and so on. So he was kind of the best candidate for being some sort of guinea pig in the realization of my plan. That's why, since then, it was me who actually started flirting with my sister's boyfriend whenever he'd come around. And while for Bree it was quite natural to compliment boys and make eyes at them and give them a mysterious smile and so on, for me, the hardest thing was to overcome my embarrassment. I will never be able to forget my first attempt at flirting with Chuck when he was in the living room waiting for Bree to come down. And I decided to give it a shot and go up really close to him to ask how he was doing. Apparently, out of surprise, he started backing away while I continued to approach. And in the end, he tripped on our coffee table and we both fell on the floor, me on top. Both of us began laughing awkwardly, and once we were back on our feet, I saw Bree, who had just come in and saw us. She said nothing and looked like nothing bothered her in this situation, but I continued further. The next time when I saw that Chuck was coming over, I decided to try on one of Bree's frivolous dresses. Damn, it was so tight and way too short. But since I needed to stick to my plan, I decided to go downstairs and ask Chuck what he thought about me in that dress and whether he thought my Dave would like it. I might be wrong, but when Chuck saw me, I think I noticed how his jaw dropped for a second. That's how good I looked. And as far as Bree was concerned, although she said I looked nice, I couldn't help but notice how fast she was pushing Chuck out of the house. Bree said nothing about my behavior, but I assumed that my plan worked out when I heard her speaking on the phone with Chuck at top volume a couple of times. I had a strange and pleasant feeling that I had something to do with it, and it made me feel totally satisfied. By the way, my fake flirting attempts with Chuck might have changed my own behavior with Dave, because ever since I started implementing my plan, I noticed he sort of became even more interested in me. So this whole situation was kind of a win-win for our relationship. I wish I knew back then that I was terribly mistaken. A couple of weeks passed since I had stopped flirting with Chuck, but Bree was still going around nervous and irritated whenever she saw him. I guess they were still fighting with each other. Then I unexpectedly received flowers and my favorite chocolate and a card that said that I was the most beautiful girl in the world. That made Bree grow even weaker. She immediately called Chuck to tell him that he should be more attentive to her if he didn't want to lose her someday. Frankly speaking, a tiny part of me was so satisfied that finally it wasn't me who was envious of her own sister. Anyway, I decided to go and thank Dave for those flowers and stuff. Imagine my surprise when he kept denying that he had sent any presents and even got mad and sort of insulted by the fact that someone might have been trying to court me. That sounded really strange, and I couldn't think of anybody else around me that would have done this. But later that day, I was once again surprised over those flowers and chocolate. It was then Chuck came to our house. Bree was in the shower, and I told him to wait for her, and he suddenly asked how I liked the stuff he sent me earlier that day. And while I stood there totally shocked, and trying to find the appropriate words. He continued saying he had been in love with me for a long time, and since he noticed my attention toward him with all the compliments and the sexy dress, he thought I wouldn't mind too, be with him. I was flattered, shocked, and totally outraged at the same time. I thought that the best way to deal with it was to kick him out of our house and tell Bree what had happened. And guess what? Good deeds never stay unpunished. She blamed me for everything. We had the biggest fight ever and didn't talk to each other for the rest of the day. In the morning, I received a text from Dave in which he basically dumped me. I knew Bree told him everything, but from her own point of view, So now both my sister and I are suffering from a ruined relationship. And the worst part of it is that we are still in a fight with each other. Do you think I was wrong in doing what I did? I'll be waiting for your likes and comments.